All right. So Mets are up 4-1, so we could begin now as soon as Mr. Pressure stops playing on his phone. Welcome to the monthly meeting of the Lynbrook Board of Education for October 8th. If we can all please rise, Mr. Pileski is going to lead us. Pledge allegiance. Roll call, everyone's present. May I have a motion to accept the minutes of September 4th, 2024 monthly meeting. Mrs. Danino, second. Mr. Lunar. I'll abstain. All in favor? All good. Art Gallery, Mr. Guns.
The Burns-Siderman Gallery is proud to present the first show of the 2024-2025 school year, featuring the work of Kat Duran. Kat Duran is a digital artist and Lynbrook High School alumni from the class of 2014. She studied architecture at the Macaulay Honors College at the City College of New York, but, always an artist at heart, decided to begin a small business under the name of Crystal Hearted Cat. Initially selling her art merch at local Long Island artist alleys, she now travels around the country to sell at anime conventions like Anime Expo, Anime New York City, Anime Los Angeles, Anime Boston, Anime Weekend Atlanta, and Level Up Expo. The art of Crystal Hearted Cat features all original anime characters, urban scenes, and food illustrations in a cyber pop art style. In her artwork, Cat explores nostalgia, futuristic cyberpunk, and a love of cities, as well as her Filipino-American cultural identity through the use of Babian script. Please take a moment to enjoy the wonderful work of LHS alum Kat Duran. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kunz. Turn it over to Dr. Lynch for presentations.
Thank you, Mr. Belmont. We're going to go a little bit out of order from the agenda because we have a very important night tonight. So October is Board Appreciation Month. And I think we have some friends here that want to, the best present that I know the board always appreciates is to hear from the kids. So we're going to turn it over to the kids.
So they're going to read the contents of the bags. So if you'd like to unpack them as they go, you may.
To our wise board with hearts so true, each decision you make helps our school shine through.
For handling challenges with calm and care, a stressful reminds you of the strength you share.
The key to our success lies in your hands. Like the owl keychain, you help us expand. With every sip from your coffee mugs bright, your fuel, your wisdom guiding us right.
Keeping us refreshed, ready to soar. Your support like this water bottle gives us more. The bracelet reminds us wherever we go, your guidance is with us, helping us grow.
And the sweet cookie, we show our gratitude for your dedication and caring attitude. From classrooms bright to playgrounds wide, your wisdom helps us all take pride. So here's our thanks from every heart, Owl proud of you right from the start.
That's really very well done, actually.
And turn it around
That's
so the
great.
folks can
Yeah, let
see
me
it.
see that. Let the TV see it. I'm desperate for one.
Maybe the board wants to get behind them. You guys want to get behind them?
I'm good.
Mr. Belmont has to stop eating his cookies. Get in the picture. So do you think I could ask our owls a little favor if each of them could introduce themselves and what school they're from? If they could, only if they're comfortable, if you say your name and what school you're from. We'll get a microphone and you'll let us know who you are,
Go ahead,
okay?
My name is.
My name is Weston, and I'm from Waverly Park.
I'm Gregory and I'm from Waverly Park.
My name's Aubrey and I'm from West End.
Say, tell them, say on. Say on.
Owen.
From where? Kindergarten Center. I want to say the Kindergarten Center.
All right, that's good.
No, I said it.
Juliet Michaels from Marion Street.
Zing for Marion Street.
Gavin Coyne, West End.
You can give the cards up there. Go ahead, give your cards up.
Thank you. Excellent job. Thank you. Well, the owl was pretty impressive.
Thank you very much. We really appreciate you coming out tonight. We thank your principals and we thank the parents for getting you here. We appreciate that. So if our littlest owls want to go home to get their work done, get some sleep, or if you want to stay, maybe there's a budding board member. Maybe somebody wants to. Maybe one of them wants to comment on some relevant policy. All right, moving on. So we have more students. The big kids. You're just as important. Just because everyone's going to go ooh and ah, you know we love you. You know that, right? You have some really talented kids that we want to talk about tonight. So we all know that NYSSMA is our state music society, and they select finalists every year. And I know it doesn't sound really glamorous to go to Rochester, New York, because you're like, what's in Rochester, New York? Only one of the greatest music schools in the world, Eastman, which our director graduated from, just so you know that's Mrs. Schaefer's alma mater. So they go up to Rochester, and there they perform really under the tutelage of some world-class conductors, and it's such high-level music, and it is such a great honor for these folks to be called to go up there. So I'm going to announce who's going to be going. I'm going to try to get your instrument right, so help me if I go wrong. So Brandon Havokin is going to be going up in symphonic band with trombone. Eric Riley had a couple of choices to make, and I think he chose violin 1 to go up with symphony orchestra. Gianna Longo is going up in the mixed chorus as an alto 2. Jack Segley going up for mixed chorus as tenor 2. Liam Mylan as an alternate for bass 2. Molly Schutzman going up as an alternate for soprano 2. And Sophia Schoen going up for treble chorus as an alto 1. Did I get everybody right? Okay, cool. So, Mr. Belmont, yes, that's the New York State Music. Those at home, it's the New York State Music Honor Society, and it's a highly ranked. It's a jury system, is my best way to describe it. So that fellow musicians, that's really why it's so important. It's a peer-to-peer judging where world-class musicians are judging kids and really the complexity of their music. So I love music, but I don't really know anything about music. People who actually know something about music are evaluating them on its ability. So does that answer the question? All right, so we're going to have T-shirt time, and some board members want to come up for a picture. I do want to do a little thing off script because I saw an amazing thing today and yesterday, and will be happening tomorrow. This might actually make the high school kids a little bit jealous. We had today is John Lennon's 84th birthday, and we had a special project at Lynbrook where we had a theater company from outside called the Theater Inside Company, and they brought a team of songwriting pair to our elementary schools, and they worked with the 5th grades to rewrite John Lennon's song Real Love using the themes of kindness and compassion and empathy and Owl Proud. And at first I was like, I thought it was going to be cool, but it was even cooler than I thought. So it went from a real lesson about what it means to be, what love is, what kindness is, and they brainstormed, and they got all the way to the point to see 4th and 5th graders counting the beats, making sure the rhyme scheme was correct, and making sure that it conveyed it was like real songwriting going on. So it was just a really phenomenal experience. And then the highlight of it is they brought professional grade recording equipment with them. They recorded it, they made a video, and you will all be seeing that soon. So that was at Waverly yesterday, Marion today, and tomorrow at West End. And it was so good. Mr. Preston and I were back again today. And you're not going to think how you have the coolest business official in the world. I don't know if you know that. So he hates that people. He's a musician. I don't know. Everyone thinks he just plays with a calculator. So he has friends from his old life. But the way he uses a calculator, pop, it's sick. But so he had friends from his former life that actually put this together, so he was able to bring those people here through those connections through some of his world. So it was just a really cool thing to see, and the kids were so into it. It was great to see. So and it also shows me just really how great our teachers are, because they weren't speaking a foreign language to them. They understood the concepts. They really did. So that was that one. Just a little plug there. All right, so we have some other good news. So we once again have a National Merit semifinalist in the house. So for those of you that don't know, there is a qualifying event, the National Merit Scholarship, which is also done at the PSAT. So in this is their 70th year. And 16,000 academically talented high school seniors from across the nation were chosen as a semifinalist. And this year, we're proud to say that Charisse Cueto is our semifinalist. Is she present? Or? No good? Oh, there she. Oh, she's so. But the fun doesn't stop there. So while she is going on to be a semifinals, we had other students here who were commended that even though they're not moving on to the next level, they have been are eligible for other scholarships, special scholarships, and we also want to acknowledge them and give them a set of shirts. So that would be Jillian Greenberg, Cassandra Levinson, Gianna Longo, Eric Riley, Kate Santoli, and Simon Yu.
You want them to come up, right? If those students could come up, please.
Okay. Bum, bum, bum. Bum, bum. Yeah, I think that's the right thing to do. And then, Mr. Belmont, I'd just like to turn it back to you for a very special presentation. I think you want to handle.
Sure. So we have a donation this evening, a tree donation from the Simpson family is donating a tree in memory of Dr. Patricia Simpson, and we do have to read an official resolution. Resolution 2410 G10. Be it resolved that the Board of Education of the Lynbrook Union Free School District gratefully acknowledges and accepts a donation of a ginkgo biloba tree from the Simpson family and the Historical Society of East Rockaway in Lynbrook. In memory of Dr. Patricia Simpson, the tree will be planted at Marion Street Elementary School. May I have a motion to accept the resolution? Mr. Murray, second. Ms. Aragona, all in favor? That's unanimous. There will be a tree planting ceremony on November 2nd at 11 a.m. And if anyone from the family would like to come up, Veronica or Ms. Simpson. There's no one that knows more or loves more about trees than Mr. Simpson. I remember after the hurricane came through and took every tree, all the trees we had out, he came to my house, spent a ridiculous amount of time with me making sure I found the right tree and had it planted there. And that tree got planted. It had to be maybe 4 feet tall. It is now like 30 feet tall. It's a tulip tree. It's beautiful, and I will always appreciate his help in getting that done.
Oh, that's terrific. Thank you, Bill. If you don't know me, my name is Veronica Simpson Crundle. It's been 6 years since I've been in a board meeting since my youngest child graduated. It's hard to believe. It went really fast. If you know the Simpson family at all, you know how important trees are to us. We've planted dozens, maybe 100 trees with the Lynbrook School District over the years that we've been here. So it seemed particularly fitting to remember my mother, Dr. Patricia Simpson, with her favorite tree, a ginkgo. And since my mother was an assistant principal and a teacher before that, and my dad was a teacher, we can't conclude without a few facts about the ginkgo tree and why the ginkgo. And it's biloba, by the way, Billy.
Yeah, I knew you'd correct me on
You
that.
asked me to correct you. I didn't just do that.
No, I appreciate it.
So ginkgo biloba trees can survive for 1,000 years. They symbolize hope, peace, and strength, resilience, and vitality, which was really my mother to a T. And they've existed as a species for 200 million years. So it's a pretty cool tree. It has a really cool leaf that's shaped like a fan. Thank you very much for accepting the donation. The school district has meant a lot to my parents and my family over the years, and we're really pleased to have the opportunity to make this donation.
Well, we
Thank you.
appreciate the donation, especially of a tree of that nature, so
Thank
thank
you.
And just a point of personal privilege. So I think we're about to unveil the portrait of the owl. And I just want to do a little bit of connection because those of you who've been around a while know one of the most important things about Lynbrook is that we are rooted quite literally in the past. And I think the Simpson family and all that they've done for this district through decades, really, this is a most fitting tribute. And we thank you for all that you've done for the district. And we just really appreciate all the good insights that you've given to us. And we will cherish that tree forever. All right, so now the moment the room emptied out, but the moment I've been waiting for. So here we have as you know, a year ago, we had a team from Malloy University come in and they announced a plan that we were going to do a full year exploration of what it means to be an owl and what our priorities for education should be in the upcoming years. So tonight is the report on those findings, and then I'll talk a little bit about where we'll go from there. So we'll turn it over to Liz to talk us through the findings.
Terrific. Good evening, board. Good evening, Dr. Lynch and members of the Lynbrook community. I am here representing Malloy University School of Arts and Sciences and the School of Education and Human Services. And it's really been a privilege to have this opportunity to go on this journey of discovery of the portrait of an owl for the Lynbrook School District. So as Dr. Lynch said, we're going to share the results of some of the qualitative and the quantitative work that we've done over the past year. We really have been listening to the community for almost a year, and it was a two-phased mixed methods research approach. What we did is we started with qualitative research, which is coming into the district, meeting with all the different groups, whether it be parents, students, teachers, faculty, administrators, alumni, and we used a couple of guiding questions for that work. Who is the Lynbrook Owl now? What differentiates the Lynbrook district in the community's minds? And what skills, mindsets, and traits do you want your students to have to be able to be successful in college, career, and life in the future? So what we did is we held a lot of in-person listening sessions, online and Zoom listening sessions, and I'm happy to say that yielded about over 200 voices around the community. And what we did is we listened to what everybody said. We thought about the insights that we learned from that qualitative study, and then we took that learning and moved into phase 2 of the project, which is developing the quantitative study. We wanted to quantify everything that we heard, the folks we met, the 200 voices, what they said. Let's see how that scales up when we talk to more folks. So we did an online survey. It was about 55 questions, about a 15-minute survey that was deployed via email in May of this year to the community. And I'm happy to say you had about over 650 respondents to that survey who literally took their time to go through and answer all the questions, and there were a lot of questions. We had about 60% parents answer the questions, 16% was teachers and staff. We had about 15% were students, 8% alumni, 7% community members, and of everybody who answered, about 16% were Lynbrook graduates themselves. There was an equal representation of all the schools and the grades. We had a little bit more from the high school, which makes sense. 39% were from the high school. The teachers represented all the grades, again, with a little bit more, skewed towards the high school. And in terms of the students who answered from the high school, it was an equal representation on all 4 grades. So what did we hear from these qualitative studies? When we talked to everybody, there were a couple of really key themes that screamed out loud and clear to us. Social emotional learning skills, and what these quotes under here are quotes from the community, directly from the research that really talk about these different themes that emerge. So social emotional learning, they need to be able to regulate themselves emotionally so they can focus on learning, focus on priorities. Character building skills were important. We want to shape good human beings. We want them not to be cookie cutter, we want them to be individuals. Digital literacy was an important component that we heard loud and clear. Sometimes the kids, they felt were naive and they didn't have all the tools to manage the digital world properly today. Global literacy. They're somewhat sheltered. We want them to know what's beyond their borders. Cultural literacy was very important. The ability to value diversity and to understand all groups of people. And then another one that came out loud and clear was what we're calling real life skills. And there were things beyond reading, beyond writing, that were dealing with emotions or workplace etiquette or financial skills and literacy. So from these themes that we learned in the qualitative study, we wanted to dive deeper into them, and we wanted to really see which ones of these rose to the top and were the priorities of the community. And then that's where the online survey came in, and I'll take you through the top line results of that survey. So the first question we asked in the online survey was, who do you think the Lynbrook Owl is today? And we asked it 2 different ways. We gave an open-ended question that everybody could just write in one word, a paragraph, a sentence, and we've got so many responses. And we also did a couple of scale questions, asking them things like, do you agree with this? Somewhat, not so much, kind of like a 5-point scale. So what we heard, this summarizes what we heard. A Lynbrook Owl today is considered kind-hearted, well-rounded, a hardworking individual who really cares about their community. They can be somewhat sheltered and naive. Lynbrook as a community is a caring community. It's got a big heart. It's got a small school feel, but big school opportunities. And building character was just as important as academic excellence. It might be behind the times and a follower district, somewhat insulated, relying a little bit too much on what was done in the past. And then a perception from the survey was that the district supports academics, athletics, extracurriculars, but thinks there might be a little bit less support for things like financial literacy, career discovery, time management, and some of the real life skills, which definitely did bubble up as important to the community. So then the next line of questioning were related to skills, which really are those essential skills that one needs to carry you throughout life to be successful, no matter what you choose to do in life. And we asked 2 different types of questions. The first was a list of different types of skills, and we asked which ones are the most important to you. And the top skills that the community selected were problem solving, about 60%, critical thinking, communication, adaptability, self-advocacy. And we also asked, are there any other skills that aren't on this list? And that's where a lot of folks, 25% wrote in real life skills and emotional skills, about 24%. Then we asked them rank these skills in priority order. And what you see here is the top skills by ranking were adaptability, critical thinking, communication, problem solving. We also asked them to take a look at content knowledge, what students need to study, and rank those content areas, what's most important to you. So all of them were important, but English came out, writing and grammar was very important. Math and computer technology, 10% felt was super important. Something that's not on here that also came out of the skills were certain literacy skills. And financial literacy, about 60% of the community felt financial literacy was super important for their future success. About 40% felt digital literacy was critical, and 30% thought information literacy was very important. The next line of questioning was about mindsets. Okay, mindsets are really the attitudes that guide action in the future. So we asked folks to rank, what do you think are the top mindsets that you want students to have when they graduate that you think will make them successful? A positive mindset was the first ranked, followed by open-minded, a growth mindset, and not on there, but in fourth place would be goal-oriented, about 14%. And then these are just a couple of quotes from the research supporting the mindset. You know, we want a growth mindset because we want them to embrace challenges and persist in the face of setbacks, and keeping an open mind to change, and achieve to your highest ability equals success. Next, we asked about traits, which really are the personal characteristics that one needs to succeed. And we asked them, again, a list of different types of personal traits, and we asked them to tell us which ones were most important, and then we asked them to rank them. So when selecting from the list were hardworking, strong work ethic, resilience, respect, perseverance, self-awareness. And then when ranking them in priority order, similar, hardworking, resilience, respect came up a little higher, perseverance, self-awareness, and accountable for their actions. One thing to note there, when we looked, because what we did was also did a dive and saw all the different audiences and how they answered it. Students thought self-discipline was a very high-ranked characteristic and trait, so higher than all the other groups. Another thing, social and emotional skills and character building was an important component to the community. About 90% felt that those two things were essential for success in the future. So lastly, we asked folks, what do you think your student needs in 2036, which was the year of last year's kindergarten class, when they graduate? We said, is there anything you think they need that's different than now? And resounding what we heard, communication. They need to know how to have interpersonal relationships. They need to know how to communicate. They need adaptability. They need to understand digital literacy. They need emotional intelligence. That was critically important. They need global and cultural literacy. They need financial skills. Those were the things that they told us were really, really important to them. So before I go to the next page, because the next page is going to be the actual first visual that you will see that kind of brings all of this together and the recommended skills. So what we did is, our team listened to the qualitative research. We took a look at all the quantitative. We looked at ranking versus selecting, and really had to critically think about what everybody was saying. We read every narrative, because truly some folks wrote paragraphs and wrote a lot of information, so we read everything that everybody said, and we had to drill it down to the handful of skills that really, we believe, rose to the top. So I'm going to show you our visual that was created by one of our students, and I'll walk you through those top skills. You'll see that this version is for the high school, the next version is for elementary and middle school. Adaptability and flexibility, okay? The ability to, I don't put my glasses on for this. The ability to meet demands and challenges seen and unforeseen, and open-minded. Emotional intelligence, social, emotional, and character building, resilience, respect, self-awareness, empathy, honesty, and integrity. A strong work ethos, hardworking, perseverance, grit, with a can-do positive attitude, but accountable for their actions. Critical thinking, problem solving. They want to be able to navigate through information, form objective opinions, global competency, and be able to take independent action to apply that knowledge. Interpersonal skills, like communication, collaboration, navigating social situations, and respect for cultural diversity. And then real-life skills, financial literacy, digital literacy, global competency, time management, and career and vocational preparedness. And then I'll show you, this is the version of the owl in his home, and a little bit simplified version with just the actual skills that we would suggest and recommend from the research. Okay.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
So questions for Malloy from the board?
So the results that you got from, whether it was a community member, student, teacher, parent, did you know when you were evaluating the results if it was from a student or from a teacher, or the information all came in without identifiers on who the...
All the information came in, and we were able to separate it on the back end and run filters so that we were actually able to see, this is what the Board of Education said, this is what students said, this is what high schoolers said, this is what middle schoolers said, and parents. So we literally were able to identify every single group, and there are some charts that we've presented that have that breakout by some of those questions.
Okay, thanks.
And like I said, the main thing that really jumped out at me when you look at all the different audiences, the main difference was some of the things that the students might have said versus what parents might have said were subtly different, especially the self-discipline, because the parents didn't put that one up top, but the kids put that one up top, which was interesting.
And then the other one I love, I've been through every page of this report multiple times, and the other thing that jumped from the kid data that didn't necessarily come from parent data was time management.
Yeah.
And I just think of how busy our kids are. They're asking us for that, and we're going to talk about who we're going to partner with. But that was another really good deep dive into that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that would be one of the things, if other board members have questions, like where do we go from here with this information?
Well, we got a lot of work to do. So I have to say, first of all, thank you to Malloy. So just to let you know, we weren't waiting for tonight to get started. So we kind of have already started. So we started with our administrative team. And we took they have beautiful facilities over at Malloy if you haven't been there. So we had an administrative retreat where we had a similar presentation where we started to do a deep dive, and we took that administratively of where we should go. And then we started on Superintendent's Conference Day. So we kind of flipped Superintendent's Conference Day this year. Normally what happens on Superintendent's Conference Day is that you bring consultants from the outside and they kind of talk to people. What we did is we flipped it. I gave a brief half-hour introduction to the findings, and then we, meaning the administration, stepped out of the way. And we left teachers alone in rooms with teacher leaders, because I thought it was important that they really dive into this themselves, and we collected more data. The data we collected, and the first finding was great. We paired non-typical groups together. So Dr. Balekis took a random number generator and put all 300 teaching staff members into that random number generator and spit out the groups. And so therefore you could have a second grade teacher from Waverly next to an AP teacher in the high school, and they got to talk about what does it mean to be an owl. It hurts me a little bit to hear that some members of our community would say that we're behind the times, but that's a finding. Like, there's no sense having the data unless you're going to listen to the data. So we kind of had to churn through that a little bit, and we had to find out what that means. And those conversations were so fruitful to find out what each other were doing, and I'm hoping permanent relationships. I think some of our high school teachers could learn a lot about what's going on in our elementary classrooms through some of our literacy programs, and vice versa. Elementary teachers knowing what the product needs to become was essential. So that was the first session. Then the second session, we put people back into their regular departments, and we asked teachers, what do you need from us? What professional development do you need to make this happen? And the third act is going to be on Election Day, where we took those findings very seriously, and now we've taken what the teachers asked to do and are now starting to look at where we go from here. So that's kind of the low-hanging fruit. What are we concentrating on? That's the curriculum aspect. We heard you loud and clear. We got to do something about writing across the curriculum, K through 12, common language. So that's going to be one of the big priorities. Another thought is, and we heard from the teachers, you want me to do problem solving and critical thinking, but we have a state mandated curriculum that I'm running, something's got to give, something's got to give. That's an administrative problem. So I think those discussions is where it begins. Where does it end? This is probably the next 5 to 10 years of our lives, just trying to enact what the community has taught us. We're probably going to come to you in the budget. I think if we don't address financial literacy, we have a problem. I think that was a key finding.
Yes.
So either we have to get that existing in the curriculum, or we need to maybe add business courses or something at the high school. And then there is this deeper question, and really this is kind of, at the same time the state is having this blue ribbon panel to talk about what does it mean for 21st century education. We were asking the same questions. Quite frankly, part one is they want a portrait of the graduate, and we kind of have that part done already. But, and I think Mr. Murray said at our last meeting, at our work session, we presented a fairly tight budget season coming up. What are the North Stars? What are the guiding principles that guide our budget priorities? The profile of the owl. That's really what it comes down to. So that's kind of the first skill set. Then going deeper into it, we had a great conversation today with PTA. We had Mrs. Boyce, our new director of social work and counseling. We talked about a partnership on the SEL skills because, yes, that's school is involved in SEL, but the home is really where SEL happens. And so how do we support the home? And how does Northwell, our brand new partnership, help with certain mental health issues and parent education, which comes with the Northwell package, to support there. So that's kind of another plank, and I think we need to constantly kind of invent this machine as we go along and question everything. I'm not saying we're not throwing the baby out with the bathwater, because that would be not the right way to go. You can't mandate change. You think deeply about change, and you start to move. And I do have great confidence in our teachers. I have to say, we have an incredibly professional staff that came out loud and clear in the people like our teachers. And I think, guiding them with our administrators, that's kind of where we head next. So that's where I see it going.
Comprehensive answer, thank you.
Okay. All right, good.
All right.
I think sometimes too, like we talk about the skills like critical thinking and problem solving. I think for our kids, I don't think it's so much about, the mandated curriculum and all that. I think it's almost like how they're learning. Like the way we learned, we had to go to the library. I remember being in second grade and asking my teacher how to spell a word, and they'd tell me to go look it up in the dictionary. And I was like, how do I look up a word in a dictionary if I can't spell it? But you figured it out, and you got the word, you got the definition, which gives you those problem-solving skills and those critical thinking skills, where I think our kids, technology has gotten so far advanced that if they need to spell a button, they press a button and it's spell check. They're losing the skills because not the content, but the way in which they learn the content. So I think it's really just about a matter of how we're teaching our kids, not what we're teaching them, but how they're learning.
Yeah, I think our teachers would agree with you on that 100%. That was a clear finding. When I was a high school English teacher, how do you teach the 5-paragraph essay in a world of AI? There's some real rethinking that needs to happen regarding that. There are ways, maybe AI generates something and you've embedded kids with the skills that they're able to critique it well. Maybe that's the way that we head. So I do think you're hitting on the height of the problem of why, and I'm not going to be popular for saying this, but I think you trust us enough to know It's going to take time. It's a process that needs to happen here. You're not going to snap your finger. It's going to be people struggling with these concepts. And the other thing that I thought was so important that came out from the teachers and the parents, all learning involves frustration. It's the definition of learning. Like at learning, when you look at those master musicians that were just here, once upon a time, every single one of those kids, it sounded lousy. And then they learned. So we really have, and there's a social emotional component to that, is how do we teach our kids to be comfortable with the act of learning in an environment that's saying, but if you don't get a 98, you're a loser. I don't think that. I think that's a horrible message to send to kids. But when that might be something that we're hearing from the outside, I'd prefer that they learn. So these are going to be, I want to have deep conversations, not shallow conversation. And I think we're prepared to have those. So that's just my thinking on it, but there's lots of other people.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think Ms. Aragona makes a really good point. You know, when I look at this is our values. It's really, it's like a value statement in a visual representation. And I think that most of those changes are going to be more pedagogical than content. It might not really mean additional costs of classes and courses and materials, but perhaps just, you know, retraining our teachers to just think about their classroom in a different way than how they were originally taught to teach, so that students have those opportunities, like Ms. Aragona said, maybe not go to the dictionary to find out how to spell a word, but certainly to be given a task with uncertainty, a task with multiple possible correct answers, and enough guidance to get started, but not enough guidance to get to the end, because the getting to the end is where the learning happens.
Yeah, that's it. So there was a great, this came from the data, from the teacher data, productive struggle. And I just love that expression, giving opportunities for not struggle. I think so, when you talk about, I'm a whole generation before you, Tara, so there was a lot of struggle, but it wasn't so productive. Like it was just, you know, you're going to do it because you're going to do it, and that's, I look back at my science curriculum of so I'm a Catholic school boy from the 1970s. It was horrendous. The way that I was instructed in science was to take notes off of a board that were written on a blackboard with absolutely no sense of experimentation or no sense of hypothesizing and testing those hypotheses. And when I walk through Lynbrook High School, or when I walk through what's happening in our 4th and 5th grades, and I see real science going on, those are the changes that I think we're talking about. Science is a great place for it to happen, you know. But I'd like to think that about the amount of these too.
And then, you know, that term productive struggle, which I appreciate also, but that's where Ms. Boyce has her work cut out for her, because you can't ask a child to do that if they don't already have the emotional regulation skills to be able to struggle without flipping out, for lack of a better term.
Yeah. And that's where our parent partners are so important. And that's why I really, you know, I see members of the PTA in the audience. I really appreciated our conversation today because it was productive struggle. We had productive struggle in our room today because we don't have simple answers for these things, but we need, there's no sense putting our head in the sand and pretending that this isn't the reality. This is the reality. And we just have to, I think we're a community, and we'll get through it that way.
One of the things I wanted to say, one of the things that really stood out to me in the report was the time management piece. And I think, like, to me, that makes me think of study skills, which is so different, you know, kind of along the lines of what you said. Study skills for when we were younger is so different than study skills now. And Dr. Lynch, you brought out a 5-paragraph essay, and AI and how does that look, but study skills look so different. And we have to embrace things like AI, and how can we use that and teach that as a tool to help us and structure our time, and thinking about moving children outside of high school and into college and using these tools effectively to help them, to benefit them, to get the most. And the jobs that are out there that are going to use these programs that we don't even know, they don't exist today, these jobs. So just embracing the tools that are there now that we look at as scary, but we need to start embracing them and using them as tools.
Dr. Belekas and I went to a conference together on artificial intelligence, and some of the scary things that were on the slide of professions that right now no longer exist. So, you know, when people said, hey, being a paralegal is a great thing. AI may just eliminate the need for paralegals. And that's just, what world is that, But what if the information coming out of AI is wrong? Well, now you need a different type of paralegal that's able to fact check the machine. And that's a different whole set of skills that are needed. It's just a different way. And the rapidity with which this is coming at us. So not to scare everyone, but your iPhone 16 at the end of October 2024 will have a complete AI component embedded into it. That's the equivalent of ChatGPT. So it's here, it's in our hands. So grappling with those issues.
And I think, to follow up on what Ms. Aragona said and what Mr. Nino said, and what we're all saying, the thing that jumps out at me the most on these results is that the kids and the parents and the teachers and the administrators who all responded really hit it on the head on what we do need for the future, right? It's not about learning biology better or science or English or math or any topic. The skills that everyone's identifying really are adaptability and the ability to kind of, flex to whatever is going on in society at that point in time. I mean, you talked about paralegals being obsolete. As I'm a lawyer, junior associate lawyers may become obsolete in a couple of years. When I grew up as a lawyer, I know this is censored and private, and we don't talk about this. But when I grew up as a young lawyer at a big firm, the law firms made money by putting a lot of young lawyers right out of school in a room to review thousands and millions of pages of documents, and they were billing a ton of money for that. That doesn't exist anymore. You could take a million documents and run it through AI in 1 hour, and yes, someone needs to check it, and that takes them 3 hours. It's not like it's evolving really quickly, and I do think what this shows is teaching our kids the adaptability and some of the buzzwords that we used, I thought by the elementary were probably the best. Adaptability, flexibility, real life skills, critical thinking. That's what we need to be focusing on for the next generation, because they're going to need to know that a lot more than any one topic. And I think we're all kind of saying the same thing. We're all kind of blown away by this data, but it's real and it's correct.
And then the personal frustration as a superintendent of a high-performing district, we are also handcuffed by the past. There still are right now, these kids still have to pass so many regions, and they still have to be responsible for their content. So everything we have to move forward while also being shackled. How do you measure hard working and adaptability?
You measure it 10 years down the road when they're successful. You don't measure it in real time.
Well, and I have to just say, so I've been plugging Malloy very well. So we kind of we took a chance together. We like the idea that they were in our backyard. We like that they teach kids from Lynbrook. Just so you know, the one of the reasons that Malloy wanted to do this, so this was part of our disclosure. Anyone who participated in the study saw a disclaimer that said Malloy is not receiving any compensation for their services, because they wanted to learn from us what they should be expecting so that they can change themselves to get ready for the kids that are coming out of districts like Lynbrook and Rockville Center and East Rockaway and all our neighbors.
So we should bill them.
That's a lawyer for you. There you go. But no, I thank you very much for your professionalism. We're not done with the partnership, but I think this was a really great process, and I appreciate the professionalism.
Thank you. It's been a wonderful journey. Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care.
Report from trustees, Ms. Aragona. Anything from the audit committee?
Okay, so we met with our internal auditors, Doc Angelo, the firm of Doc Angelo, and from the majority of the meeting, we spoke mostly about over our IT concerns going forward and how we're looking to protect all our data and our network in the future. We know there have been some issues with surrounding districts that we don't want to duplicate here. Our network security is absolutely paramount. Our technology infrastructure is in very good shape according to our internal audit. We are way ahead of the curve compared to numerous districts in the area and all throughout Long Island. We also spoke about grant compliance, and we do need to update a little procedural document. But other than that, everything was stellar. Dynamite job by the business department and Mr. Press.
Thank you, Mr. Pileski. Would anybody would like to report on the building inspections?
I can report on the high school. We had a very long tour of the high school. It's a big, much bigger building now. And, you know, I think I can speak for everyone when we were so impressed with just the absolute meticulous attention to detail that goes into cleaning up the school over the summer. There weren't any real major capital projects in the high school over the summer, but it was really just finishing touches on some of the other work that's been going on, updates to lighting when it's necessary to be more energy efficient, you know, putting in ceilings, you know, one at a time in a very cost-effective manner to just keep the very old building that we have not looking anywhere near as old as it is. And so I just want to commend Mr. Seda, the head custodians, and their staff for just the work of heart that they put into keeping the building looking like it does.
And I'll speak to Marion Street quickly. We had done that after the first day of school as well. It's phenomenal. I mean, it's 20 years since my oldest started at Marion Street. And the fact that a building that's over 100 years old is in the shape it's in is a credit to Mr. Saida and to the custodial staff over there and to Mrs. Macchia for overseeing it all. But it's warm, it's welcoming. The improvements that have been made are great. And it was, you know, first day of school, it was ready. So it's a good thing.
Moving on, Mr. Lunar for PTA.
Thank you. There are two events that I want to bring to everyone's attention. One of them everyone's probably heard about before. The Lynbrook Council of PTAs is sponsoring the first annual Fly with the Owls 5K. It's going to be held on October 27th. Starting at 8 a.m. There's going to be a fun run for anybody who wants to come, and then at 8:30 there's going to be the 5K event. The event is really meant to raise money for the PTA to use for senior scholarships. We've already had a great amount of support from the community and businesses in the area, so I urge everybody to come out, participate. For those who are looking for information, you can go to the Council of PTA's Facebook or Instagram pages at Lynbrook PTA Council. There may also be flyers, I believe, in the back of the room. We have flyers, I'm being told, in the back of the room that have a scan code you could scan for information on that. The PTA also has entered into a partnership with the Herald, where you can get a 15-month subscription, and the Herald has agreed that 50% of the funds from that subscription would go to the PTA Council to help fund further scholarships, events, and other activities. So I urge everyone to check out both, and if you're interested, again, flyers are in the back, or go to the Instagram or Facebook pages.
Thank you, Mr. Lunar. DEI liaison.
So the first meeting for this year's Diversity Council will take place virtually on October 24th. It's a Thursday. At this meeting, we will discuss the findings from Profile of the Owl, as well as recent presentations from the New York State Education Department and the New York State School Boards Association. So I just finished 2 virtual trainings on DEI, and we'll be talking about that. We will look at building level reports as well. If you are interested, please consider joining us. The best way to join Diversity Council, simply email Dr. Balekis. He is at Gerard, that's with a G, .balekis@lynbrookschools.org. You can certainly find his name in our calendar, and we look forward to hearing from as many people as can join us. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Kelly. Anything else on the board? There is no old business. Under new business, we do have a new law relating to high school student participation on school boards. So as of July 1st of 2025, requires that all school districts establish procedures to designate at least one high school student as an ex officio non-voting member of their school boards of education. So we at least should begin about trying to figure out who that right person would be. might most appropriately being the Student Government Association president might be the easiest way to identify someone, but what do the other board members think?
I mean, I don't know if easy is the way I want to do it, but I would agree that someone, the SGA president is someone who's already been vetted by his peers and by the high school, and they've demonstrated a responsibility and maturity, and that's the kind of person that we would want sitting up here on the board and hearing their perspective from the school. So I would agree that that's a perfect way to choose the right person.
Yeah, I don't necessarily disagree with that, although I would urge that before we make a decision, we try to vet the idea a little bit more, try to see if we could be a little more creative in ways to maybe select some, not necessarily a different person, but keep it open to a different person. One of the complaints you always hear about this district, and I hear it a lot, is it's always the same kids who get the same roles in every grade. There's always a few in every grade. So by doing that, we're almost reinforcing that. Again, I'm not against for any grade having the SGA president be potentially the person, but we should at least see if we could come up with other potentially creative ideas to open it up to someone who may not have a role already in the district. Those kids who are on SGA put in a ton of work and they're already leaders for the community. Maybe have them involved in selecting somebody else, so it's opening up opportunities for more kids to become involved in the school and the district. Just a thought.
Mr. Belmont, would we necessarily limit ourselves to a senior in
Well,
the
that
high
would be the
school?
issue, right? Because it's not, the law doesn't start until the summer. So if it was a senior, it would be no point. So in fact, it will most likely not be a senior if we wait until the summer, work on something between now and the spring to figure out what the process would be. We have to make a determination if we want to come up with a process and a procedure that renews every year. If you pick a sophomore, do they stay on? Will there be a term to how long that person will be on? Will he or she serve for 6 months, for the whole year? I don't think the statute dictates anything other than the fact that we need to designate someone in that unofficial capacity. But I think what their term would be and how often that rotates, right, Paul? It didn't say.
That's fine. I hadn't thought of it not. Do you happen to know, does it have to be of any?
It doesn't have to be a senior. In
Okay.
the past, when they had it, under a little different circumstances, it had to be a senior. The only condition today is that the student would have had to live in the district for at least a year to be eligible. But what might actually make sense is for a junior to do it, so a junior can start off in July and do it right through the end of the year. But that's again something that the board has to.
But the law doesn't dictate if they have to serve 6 months of the full year, correct? There was no term to their designation as, right.
It's your decision.
Right. So we have,
The intent is that there be
correct. Right. So not only continuity in the term, there should be continuity in the selection process. So every year, once we determine what the criteria will be and how we want that to happen, we should then have that consistent so we don't have to rehash this issue going forward. So once we determine how that selection will be made, that should stay consistent from year to year. So I think we have some time to continue that conversation, to think about the different ways and different ideas we have on how that selection process should be, and we can continue those conversations. Obviously, we have until the summer to designate someone.
And does that then need to be written into policy? So would this have to go through the policy subcommittee and then come back out?
Yeah.
Yes.
All right, we'll continue that conversation. Superintendent's report, Dr. Lynch?
Okay, so a board goals update. I think you've heard enough about the profile of the owl. So goal 1 is the profile of the owl and the implementation of it. So that's kind of what we've been talking about for the last few minutes. Goal 2, we kind of started some thinking about it today. MTSS is the process by which districts need to articulate how kids are being vetted for social emotional learning, reading, the old RTI, math, reading, readiness, plus an SEL component. So we started that with internal discussions with Mrs. Sabin and Mrs. Boyce just this week, as a matter of fact. We're trying to look at good models and then more, and the software systems that can support that. That will also probably be a multi-year project, but certainly when you look at the board goal, New York State has a framework for it, and the stage 1 is really getting ready for it, and that's going to be our goal this year. And then Goal 3 is communication. So Parent Square has been fully rolled out and fully implemented, and now we're going to be looking at the website and social media. Just a reminder that evacuation day is on Friday, so pick up your kids at 1 p.m. There is early dismissal. I sent out a Parent Square on that last week, and I know the principals have been doing that, so that will be there. And then we'll be testing multiple protocols that day and doing a little mini reunification to test some of our skills. And now I'd like to throw it over to Dr. Balekas, who's going to talk about our grade 3 writing curriculum.
Thank you, Dr. Lynch. And I just have to say that I do appreciate the board's discussion about the profile of the owl, and I'm going to try to link that a little bit to what I'm talking about today. So as Mrs. Aragona said before about being sent to a dictionary, if you were struggling with spelling a word today in Lynbrook schools, you'd be asked, so which sound are you having a difficult time spelling? And back to that idea of productive struggle will make you sound out the rest of the word, so you're still doing something. So we're not shutting your brain down. You're actually going to be doing some work, and we're going to meet you where you're at. So if we're spelling the word play, and I asked you a question like that, you may say that you need to learn, that A sound. So you would be responsible to give the P and the L. So that's the kind of stuff that we've been doing. That's the Sounds Right program. So today, the outgrowth of the Sounds Right program, which is about word recognition, in 3rd grade, we're really working towards language comprehension. All right, when you start talking about literacy, there's really 2 different sides. So all different models, Scarborough's rope, the simple view of reading, all of them have this pathway to become a skilled reader. How do you become a skilled reader? You become fluent in both word recognition and comprehension. So what are we doing in our 3rd grade classrooms? We've been working with Judith Hochman's book, The Writing Revolution, and teachers are addressing writing skills throughout the content areas in a uniform way. Teachers will address basic sentence writing skills, such as identifying a sentence versus a fragment, a positive, sentence structure, and different types of sentences in all subject areas. Basically what you're hearing, back to basics type of approach. A lot of us learn this way in school, and it's tried and true for a reason. Teachers will be used in a uniform way to plan and structure a single paragraph and multiple paragraphs for an essay. These skills are taught recursively throughout the years, and the repetitions that the kids get make it easier and easier for them to retrieve the knowledge alongside the content they're learning. And teaching these skills in the content areas as opposed to doing it in isolation really reduce that cognitive load we always talk about, giving the kids too much at a time, and it maximizes our instructional time as well. So our first picture here, you can see this actually is from an ELA lesson, but we do this in social studies and science with their content as well. Students are presented with different words that form a sentence. They're all scrambled up, and the kids have to take those sentence fragments and bring them back to a meaningful sentence. The part that the teachers really appreciate about the activity is the kids, they do the modeling, as you can see in that middle, that second picture there, as a whole class. Then they break them out into different groups, and they can differentiate the assignment, give certain groups longer sentences, shorter sentences, and at that appropriate challenge level so that you do have the kids struggling. And one of the nice things is the kids are writing and rewriting the sentences, and you see that determination and the grit and those soft skills that you were talking about before all happening in lessons like this. So it's really challenging them. And like I said, we do this with all different types of material. The next activity here, we present the students with a very basic sentence. And I know a lot of times when students are in middle school, they give you a very short sentence, and you're like, how do you expand upon that? So we're really trying to start at an early age to get kids to expand upon their ideas. So we go back to those basic who, what, where, why type questions, and we say, here's your sentence. Who was involved? Where did it happen? And the kids rewrite that sentence then to make it more descriptive, to make it more meaningful. And each time they do this activity, they become better and better writers in the process. The last activity, and these are all things that have happened already this year, by the way. These aren't things that are happening in the future. These are things that the kids have been working on, and these are actually examples of student work. I thank my friends over at West End for sending these over to me to be able to share with the Board of Education. So this last piece here, you can see the kids are working on something they call a small moment. They give an example of something that happened in their life, and they give that brief overview, and then they have to try to start thinking about that more deeply, and they ask those, again, who, what, where, why type questions to expand upon that idea. And it's really just trying to reinforce that idea of brainstorming, because one of those things that terrified me, I guess, when I was in middle school and high school was the blank page. And this is really trying to get kids starting to think and getting those juices flowing so that when they have those more complex writing assignments later on, that they know how to attack them. So back again to those basic skills. And I know that Mrs. Danino had mentioned study skills before. This writing is also a very important skill that lends itself to that, idea of study as well. Thank you.
Quick question. The writing revolution that you mentioned, are they using that just beginning in third grade? Is that something that's starting all across the elementary levels? Are the teachers all exposed to this?
So they all have been exposed during faculty meetings, and there's all different parts and aspects to the approach. So the writing revolution, I wouldn't call it a program, it's really an approach to writing, and there's very basic things that you can use in every classroom. And, over time, we are going to be seeing elements of this, both, I'll call down and up from third grade. So it is something that, we are going to be very well invested in, because as Dr. Lynch said earlier, one of the things we heard loud and clear in the profile of the OWL was that we needed cohesive writing instruction up and down the educational system here.
Okay, Mr. Press, capital projects.
Good evening, everyone. Most of our capital projects are in a bit of a holding pattern. The parking lot lights at Marion Street are up. Not a very exciting part of that project, but they are up and they are functioning. The more exciting part of that project are the lights on the turf field, which are just about there. Waiting for some final connections from PSEG. They have been working, I think, very diligently, along with Mr. Seda, to get that working. And we are cautiously optimistic that we may have lights by tomorrow. But this is PSEG, so we don't want to, I don't want to jinx ourselves too much on that. So more by the next weekend. Most of our other projects are in a bit of the holding pattern, as I said. The high school elevator project is going to be next summer work, but there is preliminary work that is ongoing with the architect and the engineers. Our door projects, we are finalizing purchase orders for the West End and Marion Street door replacement projects, also next summer. And we're working with the architect to submit plans to the state for the restroom projects here at the high school and a couple over at the admin building. So that's where we are at with capital projects. Any questions?
The audible sign of lights going on at Marion Street. I just want to note that if you folks didn't hear that at home, there was actually that was maybe tomorrow. Is that as far as our last home game at before homecoming? So fingers are crossed. We'll see about that. I'm done.
Thank you, Dr. Lynch. This time we'll move to public comment. If anyone would like to address the board, please come to the podium, identify yourself, and indicate if you live in or out of district.
Good evening. My name is Talia Corley, and I am a resident of Lynbrook. I am also a parent of 2 high school students that are both on the girls varsity volleyball team. So I'm here tonight to personally invite the board and everybody from Lynbrook to our annual Dig Pink fundraising game tomorrow. JV has a game at 5 o'clock, and the varsity starts at 6:45. We're raising money for fight against breast cancer. All the proceeds will go to Side Out Foundation. We'll have baked goods for sale and some other items. So I do want to thank Dr. Lynch, because he came out to support us last year, and it was really good to see you there. Your support means a lot to us. So if this year more people could come out tomorrow night, we'd appreciate that as well. And I have some flyers if you want some. So thank you very much.
Mr. Belmont, could we just announce the times, just so everyone at home heard it as well? I know I had a little bit of a tough time hearing the times.
Sorry. The
JV is at 5 o'clock,
Right.
and varsity is at 6:45.
That's right. Thank you so much.
Hi, my name is Pat Yaska, and I'm a local resident. I was at Lynbrook North Middle School as a librarian, now retired. And I have a lot of time, free time, so I spend a lot of time walking in the morning and in the afternoon. And I just want to commend the incredible hard work of the ground staff under Mike McDougall. He and his staff do so much to maintain the grounds, and there's what, 2, 3, 4, 7 buildings, and it's just amazing what they do. I wake up every morning, take a walk before school starts over at Marion Street, and I am amazed at what people leave behind. There'll be a garbage can, and all of their stuff is like 2 feet from the garbage can. So these guys are truly inspirational. So yeah, all the best to them. Okay.
Well, thank you. I appreciate you coming the time to pass on, because most people only come up when they'll complain about the grass being too long or the fields not being maintained. So it's nice that Mike and his staff gets the appreciation and acknowledgement for the work that they do. So thank you for doing that.
Can I just do a point of personal privilege on Miss Yaska? She was doing Profile of the Owl before there was a Profile of the Owl. I observed this woman and her excellent instruction as a librarian at North, and problem solving and critical thinking and digging deep into text was all that you ever did. So we thank you for that.
Okay, thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Seeing no one else, we will move on to the rest of the meeting. Moving on to donations, the board gratefully acknowledges and accepts the following donations. Under 2410 G2, team backpacks from the Lynbrook Soccer Club valued at $3,750, and 12,000 Frixon erasable pens, which I've never heard of before, but I have been using and it actually works, which will probably lead to a lot of check fraud. Erasable pens courtesy of the Lynbrook High School PTA in cooperation with the National PTA and Pilot Pen. And there are some in the back, so please feel free to bring some with you before you go home. Mr. Brescia has already pocketed about a dozen. On consent agenda.
I also learned something about them, Mr. Vitt. So Mrs. Riley told me today that if you heat them up, the ink turns invisible, and if you freeze it, it comes back to life. So that was kind of cool.
More evidence of fraud. Thank you, Dr. Lynch. Heat it up. Okay. Now I know half the kids will be doing that tomorrow. There was a correction on Resolution 2410 G4. The science stipend for 33 periods was removed. I'd like to ask for consent agenda on Resolutions 2410 C1 through 2410 C5, 2410 NC1 through 2410 NC16, and 2410 G2 through 2410 G44. May I have a motion, please? Ms. Argona, second. Mrs. Danino. All in favor? May I have a motion to accept the consent agenda? Mr. Murray, second. Mr. Luna, all in favor? Our next meeting is November 13th. Thank you for all coming out, and get home safe. Enjoy the rest of your night.